I welcome you to this second roundtable. Space today is all about founders in the regenerative space. Malika, inviting you to just share about yourself and your journey, what you hear.
Thanks, Pranav. Hi, everyone. I'm Malika Robinson. I'm the co-founder of Earth Guardians, originally from South India, now living in Australia. And my background is actually physics and computer science, but I come from a region where, if you want to save biodiversity, really you're looking at the options of, do I cut down the tree or do I, save it and let my kids go hungry? My personal journey began when I was raising my kids, and they were just amazing video game players, but I was worried that they were just so removed from biodiversity, and that over time it's all coalesced into understanding that there's a lot of anthropomorphic pressures on biodiversity, and the only way, or at least one of the most important ways we could tackle it, would be bringing some sort of economics into conservation and seeing how technology can be used to just begin an impact, whatever that is. And so that's where I am. As I said, I'm the co-founder of Earth Guardians, and we are building a game that's due to be released soon. That's think of Pokemon Go for real life.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samke. I am based in South Africa, and I'm a co-founder for a venture that is called Registry, and I'm also a Tech Fellow. So what brings me here is the fact that I had the connection through David of having been on the fellowship itself. But what got me on the journey for even thinking about building a climate venture is because my background, I am trained as an environmentalist, and I spent many years, working for organizations like WWF, implementing community conservation. And then somewhere in my journey, I ended up in financial inclusion and worked for a fintech, edutech. And this opportunity of joining Teka and building a venture came at a point where I was starting to see more and more reasons why I could combine and should be combining kind of climate action with fintech and resilience of communities. So that's how the thought process happened for me to end up here. I think that covers the question.
Thank you so much, Samke. Michael, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here with such a diverse group of founders and investors. So thank you for having me, Pranav. My name is Michael Kimani. I'm from Kenya, Nairobi. I'm in Nairobi right now. I'm a co-founder of a company known as Phone Bank. And Phone Bank is like a Web3 crypto financial technology company. We basically enable the unbanked populations in Africa to access internet services through payment tools. And we use what the popular use known as prepaid airtime. So we allow them to convert prepaid airtime into USDC and make payments online and stuff like that. And what I like about our company is that it's a people company, because our business model is a classic blockchain crypto Web3 model. So we have a marketplace where these transactions that enable the unbanked to make payments online or get financial services are powered by workers, by gig workers who provide market-making services or vendor services to this marketplace. So our platform is a great platform because it creates earning opportunities for the creator economy in Africa. How did I end up here? I think I ended up here because I have a background working with people and communities in different categories as a researcher, as a product person. And I think part of my journey, I ended up meeting groups known as savings groups, chamas in East Africa. And I worked with companies like Visa, trying to digitize the record keeping of such groups. And right now I've seen that in the climate space, there are some regenerative projects that are looking at working with groups on the ground. And I'm working with one specific one known as Chama DAO in East Africa to help them with my expertise on how to digitize group processes. So that's how I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Michael. I would love for you, Michael, to also share about your insights in the space as a community builder around blockchain, because I know there's a lot of work that you've done out there. I would love for you to share that in terms of the ecosystem that you see, and how you see the roadmap or the map that you followed in your journey. You've come in from a community organizer, or you've also invested, but you're now a founder. So just share a little bit more about that, because I think that has a lot of value here for founders, who are looking at community and community building.
Yeah, I think I always forget to mention that in a previous lifetime, I think I got into crypto and blockchain around 2013, and my first entry into this industry was through a meetup by some group of people. So my first entry to this industry was through a community, and back then everything that was related to blockchain or Bitcoin or crypto was just it had a huge trust barrier to overcome. It just sounded like a fantasy. Yeah. So a lot of what drove me in the early days was how do we bridge this gap of educating people about the opportunity that exists in this emerging industry. And it just so happened that Kenya already had a reputation of being a fast adopter of technology, known for M-Pesa, known for mobile money, known for internet. So Kenya's already had like a certain familiarity with engaging and adopting new technology. So when blockchain and crypto came along and Web3, we had something to pivot off or build off. And it really ended up paying off, because in the next 5 years, I ended up building a community of about 100,000 people from around East Africa. So I ended up influencing other organizations like ours in Kenya, and we ended up influencing government to accelerate the process of adoption of these technologies. And the other thing that drove me to setting up a community was I also felt like an early adopter in a market that was not fully developed, and I couldn't find opportunities in this market. So I felt that by educating others and by building a community and accelerating the industry, I'd also be opening up opportunities for myself and for others. And looking back now, I'm really proud to say that there's a lot of people who work in this Kenyan industry and East Africa who have benefited and came through the early meetups that I set up like 5-6 years ago. And I'm really proud to see how such a humble initiative can really transform a whole nation and an industry. And right now, actually, we're in the process of trying to rebuild this community known as the Blockchain Association of Kenya, because we've noticed that there's a trust gap. So in the early days, there was really a huge trust gap because the technology was new. But now there seems to be another trust gap because of all the controversy around the industry. So that has really kind of set us back. I'm seeing a lot of startups are withdrawing, maybe because of funding issues or because it's just a difficult business environment. And I really feel that the environment is calling for almost like a revival or a second coming or a resurrection. And that's what I'm about to do right now. I'm actually in the process of just trying to put together a community again and seize this moment again and see what we can do.
Love that, Michael. That is so inspiring, and there's just so much that I want to pick your mind on for this. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Malika, coming back to you, you come in from an academic background. You have 5 patents to your name, right? And there's a lot of intention and a lot of design that's gone about, building this, right? What are the challenges that you're facing there, right? And these complex concepts, which are such an interplay. And I think that's the point I want to highlight. All of the climate work that we do is such an interplay of various climate, technology, behavior change. How are you presenting, or what are the insights that you could share around presenting there to investors?
I've seen that. I mean, we've already raised some money last year, and we are doing the second raise now. And my takeaway has been that, sure, there is a bit of, there is not much appetite for taking risk from on behalf of the investors. But see, if we don't do anything, then it's certain that we'll lose all our biodiversity. So I think we need to increase the appetite for risk. But what I've also seen is that it helps to have, it's doing impact is great, but if you could have a solid business model around it, probably it's attractive, because at the end of the day, they're investing not just for impact, but also to have returns, see returns, so that that can go and be invested in another venture, which can, it's like you multiply the impact just by ensuring that you have a good, solid model that returns your capital. So I think my takeaway has been that, yes, it's important to have a good model. And secondly, sometimes external circumstances really help. For example, COP15, it's mandatory now for corporations to assess and report on the biodiversity impacts. Now that's a huge change, because I almost see like there's going to be a Cambrian explosion of startups working in the biodiversity space, particularly because now corporations have to do it. They have to put money there, which means you're immediately creating a market, and you're going to be, I know it's a kind of an odd word, but you're going to be financializing nature. And I think that's the approximate goal for all of us, is financialize it, make sure there is some benefit accrued to the community and to the organization that intends to do good. And of course, the ultimate goal has to be that we have to uncouple nature and finance, because we are, after all, biophilic. And if we can push that forward a bit, eventually we wouldn't have to worry or think about saving nature, because it'll become innate.
Thanks so much for sharing that perspective, of course, around the risk appetite, but also around the fact that statutory tailwinds, can really be a game changer. And then, especially looking for opportunities, and again, highlighting the opportunity that is biodiversity. That's really interesting. Thank you. I will now invite Samke. Samke, I know you have a background, or you've been working in the blue economy specifically, right? And your perspective around, and it's a very, very unique journey that you have come through, right? In terms of just having the opportunity of tech up, but also having this boundary, right? You're working in the blue economy, so you're really working in that constraint, right? So your thoughts and your journey, your reflections and insights for people who, for example, decide to go deep into a domain, right? And then they're sort of identifying or looking at the challenges and thinking through the solutions, right? So any thoughts or insights you would like to share?
I think working in the blue economy, specifically with, in Kenya, is very specific and very niche, and has some very specific challenges. I think from the perspective of risk, coastal communities, and specifically rural coastal communities, face the most risk when it comes to just climate change. Adverse weather events would affect them the more, because they also don't have a lot of buffers just around their own economic resilience. So when you work in that space, I think it's really important, from my perspective, to look at impact very deeply and very broadly, and to the benefit of that community specifically. So if you're going to bolster resilience of a community that happens to be coastal and rural, I would say that your solution must not only be a nature-based solution that looks at how to improve the natural ecosystem, but then you have to start thinking about the community's economic resilience itself. Because if you can't solve for the economic resilience, sooner or later, if a community has to make a decision around what they prioritize, they're not going to prioritize the agreements they may have with you around protecting or restoring or conserving nature. So for me, it's attend to issues in a system perspective versus just attending to one particular thing, or building a business case that is just purely, the metrics are just purely your productivity or your financial income. Think about it more holistically than that. I think that would be my perspective. And I hope Pranav, you can go deeper if I didn't answer any part of that question. But I think you specifically wanted to say, in that region, in that space of the blue economy, what are the things to think about? And I think those are key.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think it's such a crucial point, highlighting the need to think holistically, to really look at a solution which applies across the ecosystem and beyond, rather than just focusing on that immediate pain point. So thank you for sharing that. I want to bring this back to Michael. Michael, I know you have been through multiple journeys in terms of raising and in terms of also investing, right? You've worn those hats. I would love to have your insights on, in terms of, when is the right time to really start thinking of a raise, right? When's the time to really approach, when you're building out and you've had, build a community, you've built phone bank. When do you think, or what are the metrics, or when in your journey should you start thinking of, okay, this is, I now should be reaching out to investors? Any thoughts or insights on that?
So I'll be honest, I've not really done much of fundraising for equity startups. My co-founder is usually mostly responsible for that. So I can't comment on that really. But I have raised money for like projects. Like for example, I recently raised $100,000 from Mexico for a trust building initiative. So it's known as the Learn to Earn program. And the Learn to Earn program is an initiative that tries to address the financial literacy and literacy around crypto and Web3. Yeah. So one of the problems that I've found in this market from my experience was that there's a trust barrier that existed between crypto Web3 and your common everyday flow. And because this space is like a public space, there isn't really anyone focused on investing in that particular space yet all the startups that come into this market, they kind of want to build on a market that's already developed. So there's this chicken and egg problem on how do you develop, who's responsible for developing this market, yet all the startups are sitting on the sideline wanting to do this. So I think for me, in the past, some of the problems I had was, how do I raise money for such projects through an association? Yeah. And all of the things we found at the time, we were a bit too early in that cycle. So I was really fortunate to come back again in this cycle as a founder, as an entrepreneur. And I came across the Crypto for Good Fund by Mexico, which is a project that's actually geared to funding projects that address the public spaces. And what I liked about this project is it allowed like a private-public partnership between a startup and an impact fund like Mexico. And we were able to raise this $100,000 to create this program that is going to address these literacy issues for this market. Yeah. And this will not only help Fondbank, but it will also help the market developing a type of literacy for the products that are coming in. So that's maybe an example I can share of a fundraising problem that I had and how timing really had a lot to do with it, like the market developing, where there's availability of these types of funds, but also the complexity of our public spaces and developing the market. I think that's something that also needs to be discussed a lot more, but maybe for a different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing. And that I just want to flag off to the audience that ReFi DAO is working in this space towards building the commons. It's the ReFi Commons in association with Common Stack. And that's again, addressing these kind of wicked problems as we call them, right? The chicken and egg issue. So yeah, I would urge everybody to just keep an eye out for that. With that, I want to move on to Malika. Malika, your thoughts and inputs or insights in terms of the timing or in terms of your mindset when you are raising out there. I would welcome your insights. Yeah.
As I said, the market is really, it's changed suddenly because of COP15. Look, I've been doing this for many years now, and I can tell you the difference within a month, what's changed, and I can see it right now. I open my emails, I see that. So I think we need to seize the opportunity. Every corporation will have to report. So I request those that are thinking of doing something, biodiversity is a wide open space. It's critical, and the market is there. And in terms of my mindset, I think, look, as I've said, if I didn't do anything and if none of us did anything, we know we're going to lose it all. So I think the next best thing to do is maybe do something. We may lose or we may not win, but at least it's worth doing something, and that's what keeps me going. Yeah.
Love that. Fighting the good fight, right? That's what I call it. Thanks for sharing that. Samke, I would love for you, and again, you're coming in from, again, a different trajectory. It may not be, for a lot of folks, it might seem easy in the sense that you already have Teka, backing you. But I think that brings its own constraints and its own challenges, right? As you're building out, right? So in terms of what challenges or constraints that you're currently facing, you're looking at, I would love for you to share that with the audience.
I think it's very difficult to articulate your vision succinctly and clearly to people that have their own perspective about how things should happen. So every person who ventures on anything that is that they're passionate about comes with their own personal preference for how things should go. And the thing with pitching and asking for money or even speaking to an investor, they have a predetermined way around how they want to spend that money, where it needs to go, and what they believe are the sound science or the sound facts that supports the decisions that they're making. And so I think being able to connect with an investor with a storyline that also speaks to what they're looking for while still being true to your passion is very difficult. So I think the one thing that Teka is helpful on is helping you to articulate that story, and helping you to also not get too stuck in your own perspective as a venturing person. Because it's easy to also get stuck in, oh, this is how I want things to go. And I know like people like me that are incredibly passionate could even risk just saying, you know what, I'm just going to stick with what I think is right and completely miss out on the opportunity of actually building according to what funders already have. I mean, they've done the work to know what works. So I think that that's the one thing. I have raised funds for corporations before as I was working in fintech. And I also feel that as a person who's trying to get funding, you need to invest in the collateral that's going to support your case. So you need to invest in the data collection. You need to invest in good reporting. You need to invest in continuously keeping the people that have invested in you, even at a seed stage. You need to keep them up to date with what you're doing so that they're able to identify and track where they can come in and support you. And I think because founders are always so busy doing the work and implementing and thinking about various other issues, they may neglect some of the less sexier tasks like reporting, like data collection, and keeping those systems in place. But those are really the kinds of things that also over 5-10 year periods, you can track your journey and you can tell that story more impactfully. So yeah, I think those are the kinds of things that I've observed and I think would be helpful for anyone in this space.
Love that. That is amazing. Samke, you've literally laid out like a playbook for people who are in that journey, that you got to sort of hit these check boxes, right, to keep things moving in a smooth way. And I also want to flag out this important point about statutory tailwinds, which Malika has raised, in terms of just the entire environment shifting, right, to support you. And that's equally important to just sort of keep an eye on. And then, of course, just keeping track of, okay, who's out there is, David, Samke is the best. I agree, totally. Yeah. So, who's really out there looking for you, like Michael mentioned, Mercy Corps was looking for this, right? He helped Mercy Corps do this. So just keeping an eye out for that. Those are, again, some important things for entrepreneurs, for founders to really keep track of. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Really valuable insights. Really appreciate each one of you giving us your time and your attention.
Thank you, everyone. I love this community and just seeing everyone here, like from all around the world. Most of the people below the equator, what we call the Global South. So that's amazing. I would like to one call out, like I think everybody knows it here, but just like when we're talking about climate change and climate challenges, it's everyone's problem and it's everyone's solution. So it's so great to see so many folks, entrepreneurs, investors, and other organizations like interested in the area and working hard to propose solutions that enable the use of technology to basically like solve these barriers. So that's amazing. Second, I also like to highlight like this point that I think my colleagues did, that when entrepreneurs, like I know it's hard. I've been also on, like I've just recently sitting on the seat of the investor, but all my life I sat in the seat of the entrepreneur, and it's really, really hard and challenging. But I think what Sumit was saying, like to be yourself and to surround yourself with people that are aligned with you and your values and what you want to do, I think that's the great win-win for all, to really like try to look for partners and investors that are aligned with what you think. And if you hear a no, just knock on the next door and you would really like find that person or that organization that believes in what you're trying to do. And the third point that I would like to highlight by Nelly, that it's really like in this sector, but in general,
we need to change the power dynamics, and really what we were hearing here, like listening to the users and the people that are affected the most by the climate challenges. And I know we have here folks that we're all affected by them directly in one way or the other. So it's really being there to listen, to understand, and to build solutions that address those challenges firsthand, and that we build greater community and collaboration and change the power dynamics. So yeah, indeed big challenges, but I feel like with the energy and the innovation and the passion that is in the space, I'm optimistic that for sure in the next 20 years, we'll see the changes that we have been longing for so long. So yeah, thank you everybody, and have a great rest of your Friday and weekend from wherever you are.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Natalie, for just bringing that together so well. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And stay tuned. There's another interesting one coming up.